Hey guys, welcome to Sippin and Spillin. I'm Mike, and this is the channel, Sippin and Spillin, where we do a lot of talking. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about a controversial subject. And that's not going to be the entire topic of the video. We're going to talk a little bit about some plans that Frankie and I have for searching for artifacts in the creek on our property here in Mississippi. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that happened yesterday. We're going to spill a little bit about Frankie's potentially first largemouth bass. I don't know. We might have a video coming about that. And we're going to start out, however, with that controversial subject that was in the title of this video. And I really want your guys' thoughts on this. Now, what I don't want is for anybody to get nasty or mean, okay? This is a subject that I am willing to, that I'm actually excited to discuss with people, but I don't want people getting nasty with each other. So please don't do that. If you see someone comment a comment that you disagree with, let's be kind and let's see if we can't assist each other in educating ourselves in areas where we lack specific education. But let's talk about that subject. Can I, as a man, as a Christian, can you as a Christian believe that this book, the Holy Bible, is inerrant in all that it affirms? And at the same time, can you believe that this shell that I'm holding in my hand, that my daughter found in the creek on our property, is actually a fossilized shell from an extinct species of oyster? I believe it was called Exogyra ponderosa. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Any of y'all in the paleos out there? Exogyra ponderosa, I believe, is what I looked up and found. That, according to science, lived 60 to 100 million years ago in the late Mesozoic period, when Mississippi, the area where my farm currently is, was hundreds of feet underwater, under an ocean. Can I believe both of those things? Can you, as a Christian, believe both of those things? That this is a fossil that's that old, and that this book is inerrant in all that it affirms? What a question. I am excited to see the answers that you guys are going to start putting down in the comments. Your thoughts on this. It's a topic that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and soul searching about, and Googled other people's view or translation of the words in the Bible. And you know, one of the things that I keep coming back to, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, guys, because really I don't know the answer to that. I think I know the answer to that. I know how I believe, and I may do a follow-up video at some point on my specific beliefs on this question that I'm asking. But I really want to hear your guys' beliefs on that question. You know, somebody was asking me, you know, how could you believe that God, the Almighty, the All-Knowing, Creator of everything, would make a mistake, or would change His mind about something, would create some creatures and then wipe them out or make them extinct? How you know, if God created the dinosaurs, you know, how come the dinosaurs are gone? And you know, I believe, well, that's a huge question, okay? And I'm not going to get too deep into my translation of anything, but let me read something for you before we move on and talk about Frankie's fishing adventures yesterday. Let me just read this to you, and this is the you know, this is the NIV version. This is what our pastor reads from. My wife prefers to continue to read the King James version, and sometimes I'll read from that at home, but I like to read along in the same words that my pastor's reading. So this is the one that I have here today. And let me read this for you. We're going to start in Genesis 6, and we're going to start at verse 5 here, okay? The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. It's powerful. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. 8 there. And then it moves on to the story that follows of Noah and the flood and the ark. But, you know, I find that to be an interesting, not answer, but piece of information to add to maybe your own answer to whether or not God would have created a species or multiple species of some animal and then decided to go in a different direction. But anyway, I'll leave that right there, and we're going to move on. I'm nervous and excited to read the comments on this one. I am. But that's all I think I'm going to say about that right now, and we're going to move on and talk about some really fun things that are happening here on the farm. And if you guys are new to this channel, you know, this is our talking channel. We are 3 Mississippi. We have another channel that is the channel that we do the things on, right? That we go out and find these artifacts in our creek, or that we build you know, the chicken coop and the animal structures, and that we do the hunting and the fishing. That is the channel 3 Mississippi, where we do the things. And then this channel here, Sippin and Spillin, we're sipping and we're spilling it, guys. This is where we're talking about the things that we're doing, and we're talking about the things that are on our mind, and we're talking about the things that maybe we want to do at some point. And so you know, if you like this format, you should check out some more of it. I think this is our 96th video on Sippin and Spillin, and there's a wide variety of different sipping and spilling that we've done on this channel. So today, what I want to talk about after that opening is Frankie and I's plan to find more, not only of these types of things, but of all kinds of cool stuff on our property, and specifically down in that creek. We have this really cool creek. It's like a trench that's dug, you know, really deep into the land here. We're sitting on 45 acres in North Mississippi, and we're kind of at a high point where the house sits, high point even for the whole area, and our property kind of dips down and gets a little lower, and the water sheds to the west. And along the west edge of our property, we have this big trench that is 12 to 15 feet deep. And as you're down in this trench, looking at the walls of the trench, you see all of these limestone layers. And those layers of limestone are where all kinds of cool finds are. And what happens over time as the water moves down after rain events through this creek and kind of erodes, it deposits all kinds of cool stuff. From the you know, the mid to late woodland period, there's all kinds of, you know, artifacts, arrowheads, spear points, things from, you know, the Chickasaw and Choctaw Indian that used to live in this area. And Frankie and I have not yet found an arrowhead within that creek, but many people have found them throughout this area. So I know they're there. We just have to put in the work. Shark's teeth, all kinds of cool shark's teeth. People find, you know, megalodon, crazy. And we want to find those. We're excited about that. So we've been watching this channel. I believe the name of the channel, I'll put a link below if you guys are into this sort of thing, called Paleo Chris. and it's a young guy and a young girl, and I believe they're in Florida. I know they do a lot of their videos. They film a lot of their videos in Florida. I assume that's where they live. But they go into all these little creeks and low areas, and they find gravel, and they kind of find areas that they believe are going to be good areas to hold shark's teeth and arrowheads and all kinds of fossilized things. And they search for them. And Frankie and I have been watching these videos and looking at some of the screens that they use. So, essentially they'll take like a plastic tray and they'll lay hardware cloth with like 1/4 inch, openings on it. Sometimes they'll wrap the outside with pool noodles so that they can kind of float it. And, maybe they're standing in water that's a little bit deeper, thigh deep or whatever. They'll get a shovel load up into this tray, get all the silt out of it, and start looking for what's in there. We don't really have that problem. Our creek isn't that deep. So I don't think we're going to have to do the whole pool noodle thing, but we are definitely going to build one of these screens, one of these trays that has, the hardware cloth, so that we can get a little deeper into our search. I know there's stuff in that creek. We have plenty of areas, and the majority of that creek is gravel. There's some areas that are sand and silt, but there's a lot of gravel in that creek, and there's a lot of limestone along the walls of that creek. So I'm sure people have searched that creek. You can access it from the county road. I'm sure there been plenty of people that have gone through and found things there, but there's still plenty there. And after every rain event, I'm sure there's more. So that's super exciting. Frankie and I actually almost went down yesterday and did some searching down there. I haven't gone and got the hardware cloth yet, so we haven't built that. I kind of want to do that before we get down in there again. But yesterday I tweaked my back on Saturday afternoon. We were unloading some metal out of the truck, and part of getting older, guys. Here I am. I'm staring at my 50th birthday. A month away, and it it's the simplest little things. You still feel strong, right? You pick something up that's heavy, and you're but then the slightest thing you twist as you move, 10, 15 pounds, and bam, you're down. And that's what happened to me on Saturday. So I really had to take it easy Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday morning we went to church, and Syd almost had to help me out of the truck to get into church. But by Sunday afternoon, I was moving around a little better. I still didn't feel like trying to climb down into that creek, into that ditch. So instead, what we did is we took the Polaris, and we took some fishing poles, and we drove over to a neighbor's pond. Now, Frankie and I had gotten the fishing poles out a couple of nights before and removed a bunch of line off of the reels, and I taught her how to reline the reels, and I taught her how to tie the fishing knot, 8 times around and through, I don't know what that knot's called. One of y'all knows, and you're going to comment below. But it's the fishing knot that I've always tied. So Frankie, it was kind of fun to watch her trying to learn how to tie that knot with her fingernails. She's really adaptive with those fingernails. I can teach her how I do it, right? How I push it around with my finger and grab it with ease. But she has to watch how I do it, kind of try to learn how I do it, and then change it a little and learn how to do it her own way, so she can do it with her fingernails. And I believe that she can do anything I can do with those fingernails. She just has to learn how to do it slightly different. So anyway, we tied that knot a dozen times. She got where she could tie it. I was really proud of her. And then Sunday, since my back wasn't feeling up to the task of getting down in the creek, we said, hey, let's go wet a line, right? So we grabbed some tackle. We called the neighbor that owns the property that borders us and asked him if we could go fish. They have several ponds on their property, and asked them if we could go fish on their property. And they said, no problem. Do whatever you want. If you catch anything big, send us a picture. So we got in the Polaris, and we went down to the kind of the backside of their property to where there's this one larger pond that has a bunch of standing deadwood in it. And this was a pond that, it kind of looks like when they built it, they flooded a lower area that was wooded, and a lot of those standing dead trees are still there. When I look at that, I'm like, oh, are you kidding me right now? I want to get in there and just get after some fish, but that's a really challenging area for a brand new fisher girl, to get in there and try to learn how to cast. But we went there anyway, and so of course, Frankie, we're learning about presentation. We're trying to learn how to cast a spinning rod for the, I didn't take her down there with a Zebco, took her down there with a spinning rod, so she's got to learn the dexterity of hold the line up, flip the bail. When do you let go of the line? It's little things that you and I forget that we had to learn, right? I mean, I completely forget that I had to learn when to let go of the line. If you let go of it too soon, it goes straight up in the air. If you let go of it too late, it goes straight down to the ground. There was so many little things, and then, now I don't even think about, I'll cast this way, I'll cast this way. If I'm, looking for distance, but, I'll flip up under trees and all these things that, over the years, skills we've honed when it comes to casting a line. And we forget, and we have to take ourselves back to the beginning and remember that we had to learn the simplest thing, like don't forget to flip the bail before you try to cast. So when we try to teach someone who's never fished, that's when we really start remembering. And I have fond memories of when I was a kid, trying to learn how to fish, and I enjoy seeing that in Frankie. And I gotta tell you, as with many things with her, she went from 0 to wow really fast. So we tied on a worm hook, and I kind of showed her. It was kind of like a lazy Texas rig. I didn't put a bead on it, but I put a sliding sinker, tied on a worm hook, and it was like a 3/0. And then I showed her how to put the worm on, the plastic worm, of course, and then bring the hook back through the body, and then kind of pull it back a hair so that it's kind of weedless. And then, we start casting. We start practicing to cast. And, the first few casts were atrocious, obviously. Of course they were. But, she picked up quick on when to let go of the line, how to line it up, when to let go of the line, and then I started telling her, well, why don't you look at where you want it to go and see if you can make it go there, right? Because, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of casts to really get to the point where you're confident flipping up under that tree, from a boat towards the bank, or standing on a bank, flipping up under that tree that's down the bank from you. Or when you see that fallen log, right? And you see the side of it that you expect that bass to be kind of backed up under. To put that bait where you want to put it and then present it how you want to. This all takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And, I fully expected her to, I was prepared, I'll say, for her to really struggle with the casting on this first day, this first hour of ever attempting to do so. And like I said, she went from 0 to just doing amazing in no time flat. In a half an hour, every cast was where, was the best cast she could do, and it was really good, at that time. So sure enough, within a half an hour or so, she was like, hey, what? And I look over, and I'm over here, flipping a little, some kind of a little jig head. And I look over, and her rod's bent over, and she's reeling, and she's looking at me like, and I was like, and then all of a sudden, of course, it came off, and I said, baby, I forgot to tell you, you got to set the hook. So, I mean, again, I failed her by forgetting that there are next steps that we have to talk about, and one of them is, you've got this mouth of this fish now on your bait. You have to set the hook, right? So we had a whole conversation about that. How do you teach somebody to set the hook other than keep practicing? And when you see that strike happening, tell them, give it a yank. And you know, when you tell a kid, give it a yank, they don't know what that means. They don't know how hard to set the hook. They don't know. I mean, you and I even would have a hard time describing, well, how hard do you set the hook? Well, I don't know. How big did the fish feel like it was? How hard is it yanking on it? What am I fishing for? I'm going to set the hook a lot harder on a largemouth bass that slams this thing like it's his last supper than I am on a, you know, on a brook trout, right? I mean, so there's just a lot to learn here. But I'm discussing with her. I'm explaining to her what set the hook means. And you know, we'll go back to prior to setting the hook when I was explaining to her how to bump this bait, this worm across the bottom. You know, I started with the basics. I said, okay, you get it out there, let it sit, leave it alone, don't touch it. Flip your bail. Now tighten your line. Now give it a couple bumps. And here's her couple of bumps, right? So I said, no, hold on to the reel. So keep your hands on it. And I put my hand on the rod and I went like this, right? I said, now that's the bump I'm talking about. She's like, oh, okay. So then I said, okay, now go ahead and do it. Tighten your line. Give it like 2 bumps. Bump, bump. Okay, now tighten your line a little bit. All right, cool. Now give it like 3 bumps. Bump, bump, pause, bump, right? And then I said, now what I want you to do is I want you to picture this plastic worm laying on the bottom of that pond. Close your eyes and picture that worm laying on the bottom of the pond. And you've drug it across the bottom and then it paused. And then you bump it. And I want you to visualize that. And then I want you to decide what you want that presentation to look like. Okay? Is that a salamander? Is that a crawdad? What is that down there? Visualize what you want that thing to look like to this fish that's coming towards it, nosing down at it. And I want you to start working out your own little bump system. You know, bump, 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 whatever, right? Do your thing. And she did. And she started, I could see her, man. And let me tell you something. You want to see it, you want to watch a 12-year-old stop talking about everything they're talking about. You cannot get a 12-year-old to stop talking about all the things that you can't even keep up with. Here's how you do it. Because she was. I mean, it was amazing. And then sure enough, I hear some splashing and I hear her going, oh, and she's tugged on it and there's a fish on this. She's got a fish on. And I'm like, Frank, keep your rod tip up, keep your line tight, don't let any slack. I'm trying to tell her all the things in like 2 seconds. We did our best, right? It takes a long time to teach all of these things, but bottom line is she gets this bass into the shore and drags it up, and you know, it's small, but it's a largemouth bass. She got her first largemouth bass, and she got it on a kind of a basic version of a Texas rig style plastic worm. She learned how to cast a spinning rod. She learned how to present that worm, set the hook, and land a bass. How do you top a day like that, right? I mean, you don't. You don't top these moments. You continue to have moments that are equally amazing, but you know, there's nothing that I can do myself where I go out and catch a 5-pound bass by myself that can compare to watching your kid do all of that, learn all of that, and then successfully put it to use and land their first largemouth bass. Wow. So anyway, we left that pond after a little while. We went to another little pond on their property, and that pond the mud was just so bad. Frankie actually got her foot stuck in the mud, wound up pulling her foot out of the boot, and then Syd went down and tried to pull the boot out of the mud, and it was stuck. We had to bring Frankie back down there, get her foot back in the boot. And I was like, Frankie, wiggle your foot back and forth, push down with your toe, lift your. She finally got the boot out of there. But we left that pond and stopped trying to fish it. And we went to another little pond on their property where I think there's a lot of small fish, because I put on a little bobber and a little number 6 hook and a live worm and flipped it out there, and I was catching a ton of little tiny bluegill and some crappie. I caught 2 or 3 crappie that were all about that big in that pond, little tiny crappie. And Frankie was still fishing with her Texas style rig with a plastic worm, and she was like, oh, something bit on it. Oh, and I'm sure that whatever was biting on it were these small, probably crappie that were, of course, short biting it, and she was not able to set a hook on anything there. So we're going to progress to some more challenging baits that, you know, that weedless kind of style is a little bit easier, I think, for her initially, but it's also not going to catch all the fish, right? So we need to get into some jigs, some little spinners, you know, maybe some top waters. There's so much to progress to, but you know, we'll continue, I think, to fish in these small ponds here near our property, and maybe some of the small creeks that are, you know, within a few minutes of us, before we really commit to going out and going after some bigger crappie or some bigger largemouth bass. I mean, you know, I think I would be doing her an injustice if I took her out right now and put her on a 5-pound bass. Yeah, but they're here. There's all kinds of fishing around where we are, and she seemed really to have a good time and enjoy it, and she was really focused on what she was doing, and she was taking what I was telling her, and then she was taking what she was experiencing and kind of trying to apply the two things to what do I then want to do. And I think she's going to be an awesome fisherman if she continues to kind of treat it the way she's treating it. Just like hunting, you know, she did amazing. She you know, 12 years old, killed her first deer this year, and you know, everything that she did throughout the deer season leading up to that, all of the learning and the decisions that she was making, the critical thinking that was going on at the moment that she finally had a shot at a deer, and it wasn't a deer, there were 5 of them out there, and all the critical thinking she was doing about which deer and whether or not she was going to injure a second deer if she took this shot, and so then I'll take this shot. And she was shaky and she couldn't stop shaking, and she was, okay, you know, I don't want to shoot for the heart, it's too small a target. Dad, can I shoot it in the shoulder blade? Yes, you can. I mean, if you have a 12-year-old, you know how proud I am at living through this with her, you know. But anyway, so that's what's going on here. We're having a great time. We're you know, go check out 3 Mississippi, where you're going to see videos of all of these things. There's videos there of her first deer, and you know, I got the shot on film, so that video is there. The video yesterday of her catching her first bass will be up soon, you know, within the next week. So, and you know, and all the things we're doing around here, the construction of the chicken coop, we've got fences that need to be built, the gardening, and so much. So definitely go check out 3 Mississippi if you want to see us do the things that we talk about here on Sippin and Spillin. But back to the intro of this video, you guys. I'm just gonna leave this video with this for you guys. I'm gonna tell you that I believe every word in this book. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. I also believe that this is a fossilized shell of an extinct oyster that we found in our creek, on our farm in Mississippi, that once upon a time was under an ocean of water. I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on Sippin and Spillin. Don't forget to like the video or dislike the video. Don't forget to be honest, all right? Go ahead and click the bell so you get notifications. And make sure you turn on all notifications, because just clicking the bell, unfortunately, doesn't get the job done. You have to go into another spot on your channel and turn on all notifications. And then you'll get all notifications, not just from us, but from all the channels that you're wondering, how come I don't get notifications from that channel? I clicked the bell. That's why, folks. Have a great evening. God bless.